It happened just last night. I was at a coastal retreat with my 3 sisters and my mum, a weekend getaway meant to bond over kayaking, bonfires and stargazing. The first day was uneventful, just the usual laughter, bad jokes, and the smell of salt water in the air. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to prick the sky, the atmosphere shifted. It started at the bonfire. We were roasting marshmallows, the flames casting long, flickering shadows across the sand. My youngest sister, Mia, suddenly announced she needed to use the restroom. The nearest one was a rickety wooden outhouse perched on the edge of the dunes, a good 10-minute walk from the fire. Being the oldest, and the only one she trusted to accompany her, I reluctantly agreed. Now, I'm not exactly brave. I love horror movies, but only when I'm safely tucked under a blanket with all the lights on. Still, I grabbed my trusty multi-tool, a gift from my uncle, and tried to act like I wasn't terrified of the dark. We set off across the beach, the sound of the waves crashing to our left and the dunes rising like shadowy giants to our right. About halfway to the outhouse, my sandals sank into the wet sand and I cursed under my breath. As I yanked my foot free, I glanced toward the dunes. That's when I saw it. A figure. It was tall and impossibly thin, its silhouette jagged and uneven, like a broken tree limb. It moved in a jerky, unnatural way, as if its joints didn't quite work right. My heart leapt into my throat, but I told myself it was just a trick of the light. Maybe a piece of driftwood caught in the wind. Then it turned its head. I couldn't see a face, just a dark, hollow void where one should have been. I froze, my grip tightening on the multi-tool. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. The figure tilted its head, like it was studying me, then ducked behind a dune. I grabbed Mia's arm and hurried her toward the outhouse, my eyes darting back to the dunes every few seconds. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "See what?" Mia asked, oblivious. I didn't answer. I just stood guard while she did her business, my pulse racing. When we got back to the fire, I tried to shake off the unease, but it clung to me like a second skin. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I realized I needed to use the restroom myself. The thought of walking back to the outhouse made my stomach churn, so I decided to brave the dunes instead. I told myself it was fine, just a quick trip and I'd be back in bed before I knew it. I crouched in the sand, the cold wind biting at my skin, when I heard it. A low guttural sound like a wet cough or a choked laugh. I spun around, my heart hammering, and saw the figure standing just a few feet away. Its body was twisted, its limbs bent at impossible angles, and its hollow face seemed to pulse with a faint sickly glow. I bolted, tripping over my own feet as I scrambled back to the cabin. I slammed the door shut behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My mom, half asleep on the couch, asked what was wrong. "There's something out there," I stammered. She rolled her eyes. "It's just your imagination. Go to bed." I wish I could have believed her. That night I shared a room with my sisters, the door firmly shut and locked. I tried to distract myself with a book, but every creak of the cabin made me jump. Just as I was about to drift off, a bright light flashed outside the window. Against my better judgment, I peeked through the blinds. There it was, standing in the dunes, holding my multi-tool. Its head tilted slowly, almost mockingly, as if it knew I was watching. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a toy telescope from the shelf, and held it up like a weapon, trying to look intimidating. The creature didn't flinch. It simply tossed the multi-tool at the window, the glass rattling in its frame, before shuffling off into the darkness. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I made up some excuse about dropping the multi-tool in the sand to explain why it was missing. No one questioned it. As we packed up to leave, I caught a glimpse of the figure again, standing motionless among the dunes. For a moment, I considered throwing a rock at it, but something stopped me. Some things are better left alone.